Experience the joy of watching your friends and family's faces light up when you feed them wild game you harvested and made into delicious sausages, or meat you barbecue and grill with the finest seasonings available. Visit our friends at waltons.com to find everything you need to turn wild game into tasty meat snacks, or spice up your barbecue with new flavors and seasonings. With over 500 seasonings to choose from, there's something that everyone will love. They even have step-by-step videos and how-to articles at Meatgistics to help you go from animal to edible. Use coupon Rangers15 at checkout to save 15% on your first order at waltons.com. Waltons, everything but the meat.
This is Texas Rangers announcer Eric Nadel, and you're listening to the Ranger Report podcast, as you should be.
The Ranger Report, yeah, the Ranger Report. Inside scoop. Listen to the Ranger Report. Oh, here we go.
This is the Ranger Report podcast. News, insights, predictions, interviews, and information about the Texas Rangers from the major leagues to the minor leagues. And now, here are your hosts, Ben Dieter and CJ Berryman.
I always like to tell everyone we had Victor Rojas on one time, and it was a great interview. And then after we finished, I realized I never hit record. So we basically just had a phone call and talked to Victor Rojas for a little while, and nothing came of it.
Victor told Ben.
Can I tell you that in this industry, that happened to me once when I was in college, and I don't know how, but I went to a Washington Bullets practice, and I was going to interview but I interviewed Phil Chenier for about 10 minutes and never hit the record button.
It feels so. And Victor was cool about it. He gave Ben hell. He said, "Man, I gave y'all my best stuff."
Yeah, I remember the interview with Chenier. Like, man, this is really good. I'm getting somewhere for this.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Washington Bullets. Yeah, they were the Bullets back when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Mitch Richmond.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get it started.
All right.
Welcome to the Ranger Report podcast, everybody. I am Ben Dieter. You can find me on Twitter at BDieter75.
I am CJ Berryman. You can find me at CJB_RR.
And you can find our guest today every evening on the Rangers radio network calling games. Matt Hicks, how are you doing, sir?
Hicksie.
Doing well, fellas. How are you?
Doing great.
Doing good. Always good after a Ranger win.
Yeah. Well, we're very happy to have you back on. We love talking to you. So let's start with, I think this is a good one to start with. Let's talk a little bit about the streak that Nathanial Lowe is on right now.
Yeah, it's really something to watch, and it's a lot of fun because when a guy is hitting like he's hitting right now, every at bat, you know that something special could happen. And here in the last couple of games, the last game in Denver and the game to open the series with Detroit at home, he's hit a couple of tape measure shot home runs. And when he hit the one the other night, or the other day rather, in Denver at Coors Field, my jaw literally dropped. Just like, oh, are you kidding me? And then he ends up hitting one that was about the same distance at home. And so it's remarkable.
That center field shot.
Yeah. So it's funny because Eric called that home run, the one at home against Detroit. And then his next time up, he was actually leading off an inning that I was doing. And I started it out by saying, all right, here we go. Nathanial Lowe at the plate. It's appointment listening. You've got to be ready. And the first pitch, he hit about 390 feet from home plate. It was caught out in center field. But you just don't know. And he's so locked in right now. And it's really, it's really cool to see. Early in the season, I know that, he had a little trouble with velocity. And he was getting maybe a couple of hits against high velocity by going the other way, which simply meant that, he was a little bit late on pitches, but he was not late enough that he didn't miss, and he put the ball in play. And that's what's, I think, so good about him right now is that he's making such good contact and driving the ball and to all fields. So, the home run that he hit at Coors Field was pulled to right field. The one that he hit at home was a shot to center. And of course, he's among the league leaders in balls hit to the opposite field. So it's tough to defend against him because you can't really shift because he might go the other way. He's not necessarily looking to go the other way, but if he gets a pitch that's outside that he can drive, he'll drive it the other way. Right now, it's hard to get him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been, I think Stanler said the other night, since 2016 is the last time. Elvis Andrus did it in 2016, I believe is what Stanler said, that last time a Ranger actually hit a 300, and it was 302 by Elvis Andrus. And Nate's his batting average is creeping up towards 300. How neat would it be to see him hit 300 and just go into the offseason really on this kind of roll if it continues through September?
Yeah, I mean, it is something in this day and age to talk about a guy maybe hitting 300 when 15, 20 years ago, there were, 24 guys in Major League Baseball that routinely hit above 300. And now, you only have a handful of guys that are qualifiers at least and hitting over 300. And I think going into play today that Nathaniel is around 298, something like that. So it's worth talking about because, the batting average statistic has been a much maligned statistic here in recent years, but I think it still means something. It's not everything, but it still gives you an idea about what kind of hitter we're talking about. And so I think with Nathaniel, that 300 is certainly attainable. I mentioned this yesterday that he's on a pace this year for about 175 hits, which also takes us back to Elvis Andrus in 2017, the last time a Ranger had as many as 175 hits. So I think that's also attainable. Elvis in 2017, I think he had 191 hits. So I don't know if Nathaniel is going to reach that 190. Of course, it used to be the case that we would talk about a guy being someone that could collect 200 hits in a season. There just aren't many people that can do that these days because getting 200 hits means you're in the lineup every day and you're definitely having to hit 300, to get to that level. But Nathaniel is taking us back a little bit in baseball to times when, a 300 hitter was not necessarily an everyday thing, but something that you saw a lot more often.
Yeah, I miss the good old days of Rusty Greer hitting 330, 320 every year.
Yeah, exactly. Or, look, picking up the paper and saying, well, Tony Gwynn's hitting 356.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony Gwynn was amazing at the plate. It's so impressive to watch him hit. And let's flip it over to another guy who's hitting very impressively right now. Adolis Garcia extended his hitting streak to 22, and that is kind of gone under the radar because Nate Lowe's doing such special things. But, Adolis is hitting 256 this year. And I would have said, hey, if you get 250 out of Adolis and with the power and if he gets on base more, hey, he's your one of your outfielders moving forward. And I think he's proven this year that he's here to stay. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Last year, Adolis got off. Remember, he didn't start the season with us last year. He came up early. And he was just a house of fire early on. And the first 2 months of the season, he was terrific. He made the All-Star team. And then in the second half of the season, especially the ceremonial second half after the All-Star break, he just kind of faded. And people wondered, okay, so is he just a half-season wonder? And then this year, maybe he didn't start out like a house of fire, but the power was certainly there. And now he's got this combination. He's a 2020 guy already, the first one in the big leagues to do it. And now he's on this 22-game hitting streak that isn't exactly the kind of hitting streak that says, I'm here to, I've come here to drink your beer. It's the hitting streak that shows that he's made adjustments and he's become, I think, a different, more mature hitter this year. The hitting streak was extended yesterday with a ball that rolled about 80 feet from home plate, little chopper. He's done this more often than not now where he's extended this streak with an infield hit. but he's popped the occasional home run. He can still drive the ball. I don't think that he is going to the plate thinking, okay, I need to get one hit today to extend the streak. I think that what we have seen from him is a guy who has chased a lot less. Therefore, he finds himself in some more favorable counts. He'll still swing and miss quite a bit because the strikeout totals are there. But you also see at-bats this year where he swings and misses. He takes a violent cut or two and doesn't make contact. And then somewhere deeper into the count, he does make contact and he puts the ball in play. So, yes, he's hitting for a better average. During the streak, he's hitting about 310, again, which isn't completely dominant. It's not like what Lowe is doing, where Nathaniel, I think, and I don't know the exact number, but he's reached base safely in like 29 of his last 31, and he's batting about 340 or 350 over that stretch with some power. So for Adolis, it's been here in the second half, here in the ceremonial second half, about 35 games. In that 35-game stretch, he's hitting a little over 300. It's kind of funny because last year at the same time, he's basically got the same number of doubles and home runs since the All-Star break, but his batting average is about 95 to 100 points higher. So it's just a guy who's making more contact, who's learned to be a little bit more disciplined in the strike zone, not chasing as much outside the strike zone. And what you're seeing is a guy who is definitely impacting our lineup.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Speaking of impacting the lineup, another guy I wanted to talk about is Bubba Thompson since he's been called up. Bubba was hitting, like crazy at AAA, had a great year, stole something like 52 bases. I think it was ridiculous. Then he's come up. Do you think, if you were a betting man, would you bet that anyone's ever going to catch him stealing?
Well, I think the numbers in the minor leagues at AAA where he stole 49 bases in 52 attempts.
That's right, yeah.
Think about that kind of success rate in this day and age where essentially what the numbers say is in order to be successful in stealing bases, you need to be stealing successfully about 75% of the time. Well, he's off the charts because he's 49 out of 52 in AAA, and I think he's 7 for 7 already, or maybe 8 for 8, whatever it is, here in the big league. So that's 56, 57 steals, and he's only been thrown out 3 times. So he's got elite speed, and I think that it's obviously it's evident on the bases. I think it's even more evident out in left field where he's made some incredible plays. And not necessarily on balls he's gotten good jumps on. He's made some terrific plays on balls where he didn't get a good jump and he still got to it. There was a play recently in Minneapolis where Byron Buxton hit a line drive, sort of a sinking snap hook kind of line drive. And Bubba didn't see it off the crack of the bat, and he had a little trouble with the background playing out in left field. But then once he got on his horse and he ran hard to his right, he was able to make a running catch, not a diving catch, but a running catch on a ball that he had to bring his glove across his body. He caught it about ankle high, shin high. And even as he approached the ball and was closing on it, my thought was, he's not going to get it. And then he ends up getting it. So he's a special talent. And then, the question, of course, in him coming up was, well, is he going to be able to hit enough to get on base to, make an impact on the bases? And, well, he's got hits in something like 10 of his last 11 with a plate appearance or 11 of his last 12. So he is certainly getting on with regularity at the bottom of the order. And, of course, that helps to take you back to the top of the order and get things going all over again.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't think he's an everyday player, but a bench guy. Do you think, going forward, the Rangers could use a guy like him coming off the bench, but do you think he can earn his way into an everyday role?
Well, it's almost there now. I don't know as though they're there now, but you know that we've had 12 different guys play in left field this year. 12. That's like half of our position player roster that's played at some point during the season has played in left field. And Bubba has kind of helped to stabilize that. Now that Cole Calhoun is back off the injured list, you figure that Cole is going to see some time in left field as well. But right now, Bubba is not just hitting left-handed pitching. He's also hitting right-handed pitching. Now, the power that he displayed in AAA hasn't translated yet here to the big leagues. But I think that what he is doing right now is certainly good enough to help keep him in the lineup.
Yeah, and if he sticks in the lineup every day, which I mean he's showing that at least early on he can. I mean, he's at the plate, he's hitting 274 with the 328 OBP. You want to see that OBP with him, especially. You want to see that OBP, and but the pop is there. We've seen that in AAA and AA, so it's there. But you combine him with Leote and Adolis moving forward. In my opinion, that's the best defensive outfield in baseball, and hands down, no doubt about it.
It's three center fielders. You've got fielders essentially covering the outfield. And you're right, because Leote has got incredible closing skills. And Adolis, covers a lot of ground as well. And the other thing that's good about all three of those guys, they all three have great arms. Yeah. So, usually when you're talking about a good outfield, you're talking about some speedy guys that have, good first step reactions, and maybe one or two of them have a good arm. And guys have certain strengths in the outfield where a guy might be better going back on balls as opposed to coming in on balls. And it seems like all three of these guys are just good in every element of being a good defensive outfielder.
Yeah, and then if you look to next year, and Bubba keeps playing like he is, and Leote keeps playing like he is, and
don't forget Eli White when he comes back.
That's where I was about to go. That's where I was about to go. Ben, thanks, Ben.
Sorry about that.
And Eli White, I mean, that's a fourth outfielder, a bench player you would love to have, and I think that would be just outstanding moving forward when Eli White comes back healthy, to have that fourth outfielder that can do the same things in the outfield that the other three can do. But we'll flip it over here to Tony Beasley. Obviously, he's kind of managing for. He's interviewing for the managerial position, I guess, right now, you could say, moving into next year. And it's not out of the question that he could definitively be the manager next year. How do you feel that he is done thus far? It seems like, at least in his interviews, it's refreshing to see that he doesn't pull any punches, and he will call players out. He won't say their names exactly, but you know who he's talking about when he calls them, when he does his interviews. And it's kind of refreshing to have that he's no nonsense, and he's going to say what he feels.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to I don't know as though we've heard it anywhere here recently, but a few years ago when Elvis was with us, there was this moment, and it's been reported, and I wasn't there. I didn't hear it for sure, so I don't know exactly what the words were. But, Elvis was having a sort of a little bit of a tough time at that point in the season. And Tony, as the story goes, went up to him and said, you're not very good right now. So when you're talking about the brutal honesty, but I mean, it's not just him saying something like that to him. It's approaching him and going, look, I got to bring you to reality. Here's the situation, and here's what you need to start doing to get back to being the Elvis Andrus that is an elite player, in the major leagues. And so sometimes, a guy might need that sort of a figurative slap in the face, but who knows? But when you talk to other people, what you find out is that Tony Beasley is a pretty good people person in terms of managing personalities and the kinds of, you've got so many different kinds of personalities in a clubhouse. And so at times a guy needs a pat on the back. At times a guy needs a kick in the rear. And then there's a lot of stuff in between. And Tony seems to have a pretty good feel for that. But I think also that players are pretty good at responding to him and listening to Tony and realizing that, he's been around. And the other thing that people don't get a chance to see or hear, or what we get a chance to experience with other people, with other clubs telling us that, man, this has been a long time in coming, Tony getting an opportunity like this. And so it's a small number of games. It's essentially basically a quarter of a season, or a little bit more than a quarter of a season. Is it a tryout? Yes, obviously it is a tryout, but he's going to do what he can with what little time he has. And obviously right now he's putting his best foot forward. There was another pitching coach here recently with another club. We sat down and we were talking about a variety of things, and he brought up Tony, and he said that every time that he's been asked about Tony Beasley as a manager, his response was, this opportunity should have come a long time ago. And that anytime anyone says, is there somebody out there that, you think would be a really good manager? He says his first response was Tony Beasley. So I think that Tony is well respected throughout the game. This one particular pitching coach isn't the only guy that's a coach or a front office, a person who has said something similar like this to me here in the last couple of weeks. So it's kind of neat to see. And for me, it's neat too, because, I knew Tony back when he was a player coming up in the minor league system of the Baltimore Orioles. We were together in 1990 in Frederick, Maryland. It was my second year as a broadcaster. It was the second year for that particular franchise. And Tony was coming up as a second baseman in the Orioles organization. And we won a ring together back in 1990. So, nice. Obviously I don't think that's something that's in the offing here for 2022, but Tony Beasley is a championship type guy all the way around.
I couldn't agree with you more. All right, so Ezequiel Duran's having a good time. Josh Smith has been up and down and not good. He got sent down, but all Ranger fans are clamoring for this guy to be called up at some point, and that's Josh Jung. He's batting 300. He has I just had it. His OPS is 1037, I believe. Nope, 1037. Yeah. So he is, what else does he need to do? What do you think the Rangers are waiting on to call him up?
I have no idea, because I am not a good talent evaluator. I'm also not privy to those kinds of decisions. For all that time that I was in the minor leagues, I'd see a guy and go, man, this guy's really something else. He ought to, and then he never makes it to the big leagues. and then there's a guy, and I'll say this because he's starting for us tonight. I'll be particular. Adolis Kykel came up in the Houston organization when I was broadcasting in Corpus Christi. Mm-hmm. Saw him for a portion of the 2010 season and then a pretty good chunk of 2011. And if you had asked me back then, well, is Adolis Kykel a potential Cy Young candidate? And my response would have been no. I think Adolis Kykel is going to make it into the big leagues, and I think he'll probably be maybe a reliable fourth or fifth starter. So if you're asking me to evaluate somebody in the minor leagues, I am definitely not the guy to ask, because I'm pretty sure I've missed a whole lot more than I've hit. But with Josh Jung, he seems to be, at least all that I've seen so far in the way of video, the interviews that he's done. I only had the opportunity to talk with him very briefly at spring training this year. But this seems like the kind of guy who's about as close to a sure thing as you can get in baseball. Yeah. You never know if it's going to translate. I don't know, to answer your question, what more can he do? I think if the Rangers are looking for more from him, it's not, can he have a higher batting average? Can he have more contact? I think what they probably just want to see are more games under his belt. The fact that, he didn't, play for the bulk of this season, the number of games that he's played at the AAA level is not a lot. I don't know exactly what that number is, but
really you can say overall, he hasn't played a whole lot of games,
Right. I mean, it's not just the lack of experience at AAA, it's the lack of professional experience overall. Yeah. The thing that I think that a lot of organizations like to see from a guy, including a guy like Jung, who is a first-round draft pick who has all of these credentials, is they want to see the adjustment period. Yeah. A lot of guys can start out, hitting over 300 and driving the ball and hitting home runs, but at some point, adjustments are going to be made, and then he's got to make adjustments to those adjustments that are made to him. So I think they probably want to see that a little bit before throwing him into the fire of the big leagues and going, hey, look, we've got our first round draft pick who's hitting 320 and this guy's the best. And then, he comes to the big leagues and he's won for his first 22. And then everybody goes, whoa, what's going on? Not to say that that's going to happen to Josh Jung, but it takes me back to my time even before being a professional broadcaster, when I was a fan of the Baltimore Orioles in the late 70s and early 80s, and Cal Ripken, when he first came up. And Cal Ripken, over his first month or two, he was supposed to be, the guy. And he was going to elevate the Orioles to even greater heights than what they were experiencing at that time. And he comes up in his first couple of months and he's hitting like $160, and people are like, That's a Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah.
And he had a tough time, at the beginning of his big league career. So when he gets called up will be the time that the Rangers decide this is the right time. Him be coming up to the big
right
league.
on. And it's, you mentioned Dallas Kykel earlier, and it's going to be very strange watching him don a Rangers uniform and take a mound today.
I know.
Today. Oh, that's just going to be strange. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. And I'm going to talk about a funny conversation that you guys had on the radio and we tweeted about a little bit. Agua de Joe, Mrs. Hicks did not care for it, huh?
Yeah, she still doesn't. I haven't.
Oh, man.
I haven't used that in a long time. But yeah, we had it was funny because it was a conversation that we had while we were in Minneapolis, Eric and I on the air. And it came from a live read that included Derek Holland in the live read.
And Saunders, right?
Yeah.
Joe Saunders.
Say what?
And Joe Saunders, right?
Right. Well, Derek was in the live read. And so I did the read. And I was finished with that, and I'm describing the next pitch or two. And I said, gee, when I think about Derek Holland in Minneapolis, I think about the time that I went to the Nicollet Mall in downtown Minneapolis. And I was out shopping and I happened to bump into Derek Holland and Joe Saunders shopping. And Derek says, hey, what are you here to get? I said, you know what? I'm actually looking for some cologne. And Derek said, well, let me tell you about a particular cologne that I use. And so, we go and we ask the person there and they say, oh yeah, we've got some, this Agua de Joe from, I believe it's, what's the name of the,
Giorgio Armani.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I try it and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. So I end up getting some and I'm pretty excited about it because I'm not usually a guy who wears cologne very often, if at all. And I'm thinking, oh, my wife will love this. And, so I get home from that trip and I put it on and she's like, hey, what's that cologne? I go, oh, it's this new cologne I got. I went shopping with a couple of the guys from the club. She goes, it's terrible. So shortly after that, she got me some cologne and she really likes it. And so I'll wear it from time to time. We're doing this podcast. She's not home right now. And so I'll just say it. It's I don't really like it. It's not very good. Anyway, I'll put it on from time to time if we're going out, but I guess we just don't see nose to nose on certain cologne.
It's funny you mentioned that because I don't know if you ever watched King of Queens, but I was laying in bed last night and dozing off and watching it, and the episode came on where he gets this cologne that everybody loves, and he goes home and Carrie doesn't like it at all. And she tells him to take it back and get his money back. Well, because everybody else likes it, he starts hiding it in a cereal box and starts wearing it every day. You're not at that point, are you?
No, I'm not. The cologne that she got for me, I used to take with me on the road, and then I'm like, yeah, why bother? So I leave it at home, and like I say, occasionally I'll put it on if we're going to be going out somewhere. But other than that, I don't wear cologne.
Well, if I bought you Mrs. Hicks' favorite cologne for you, would you give us a shout out on the game today? I use it so infrequently. I can't even remember the name of that one. So, but it was kind of cool to tell the story only because it's rare kind of to bump into guys.
Yeah.
Never at home, almost. On the road is when we get a chance to see them. But, to see major league players just doing regular guy things, mm-hmm. It's always nice to relay that to the listener. So,
and see, I'm a cologne connoisseur. I'm the exact opposite of you, Ben. Matt. I've got Ben, I think, you're Ben. I've got like 11 different types of cologne, and I wear different flavors for different colors that I wear. So,
wow. I don't think I've purchased 11 bottles of cologne in my life.
I haven't purchased any of that helps.
Sure, I haven't.
I like my colognes, and everybody, that's my trademark. Everybody that I see that I haven't seen in a long time, they're like, "Oh, you always smell so good." I'm like,
yeah.
My trademark.
And you know what? And there's certain guys, will be, walking around or whatnot. And there's certain guys with the club, that will wear cologne. I'm like, man, why does that guy always smell so good? I'm pretty sure there's nobody out there going, Hicksie smells good. All
right, Matt, on that note, if you guys don't listen to the Rangers radio broadcast, you're crazy. The guys do a great job on TV, but I love listening to you and Sandler and Nadell and Zach Wolchuk when he's on. You guys do a fantastic job. So, Matt, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for the compliment and appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Yes, sir. Have a great game today, Matt.
We're having you on today, Sandler tomorrow, and then we need to get Eric back on. We've had all three of you on before. We just need to schedule it with Eric and complete the trifecta pretty quick.
That sounds pretty good.
All right, Matt. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Ranger Report podcast. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and at therangerreport.com.